Hey everyone, I'm going to be showing you my preferred way to join in the round. So what I like to do is I cast on the stitches that the pattern calls for. So you can see I have cast on 136 stitches on my needle and it wraps around my cable here up the other needle. So what I like to do is cast on one extra stitch than what the pattern calls for. So that's what I'm going to do. I just use the knitted cast on, so I'll just do one here for you. So there's my 137th stitch, and don't worry about it, we're going to get rid of this stitch before we start knitting. So if you've never joined in the round before, or knitted in the round for that matter, you want to always have your working yarn in your right hand. And you want to make sure that before you join, the trick is to make sure the stitches are all facing the same direction. And what that means is, what I like to do is all these little connectors or little nubs, I like to point to the inside. So I'll let you just kind of watch as I follow along. You can see it's twisted here. So you just want to turn those as you go. And again, I do it the same every single time. I always knit with them facing the center. And that way it's just kind of standard every single time, so you can see how twisted this is. You could not join in the round with it twisted and have a successful project. You would definitely have to frog that project. So no use in wasting that kind of time, right? So now I've got them all facing the center here, and I'm gonna do my join, showing you my little trick, which a lot of people do. So with my working yarn in my right hand, I'm going to knit the first stitch, and remember this is the extra stitch, and as that goes from the left to the right hand needle, it's sitting here at the top. All I'm going to do to get rid of that stitch is I'm going to put my needle down through, just grab that second stitch that's on the needle. You can see if I spread these out, this is the second one. So all I'm doing, I'll do it one more time, is I'm just putting my needle down through and grabbing that second stitch up. If you've ever done the standard bind off, this is kind of how you do that. So all I'm going to do is take it, and you're going to have to sometimes like move these stitches up just a tad to give yourself some slack. But I'm going to hold my working yarn in my right hand just to kind of keep that top stitch from sliding right off. And all I'm going to do, just take that stitch, and you can see there it goes, it's dropping off my needle. It's now kind of hugging that first one that was at the top there. And now I have joined in the round. So that's a nice tight join. And the next thing you're going to do is put a stitch marker at the very top, just slide it right on top of the needle. And that is going to tell you when you are at the end of your row. That's really important. If you didn't know where that was, you would have to use the tail as your guide, and that gets a little hard once you have a lot of stitches on the needles. So as I knit, and I'll just go ahead and knit the first stitch just to show you. And the first round is a little tight, depending on how many stitches you have. It's a little tight moving around here, but as you get to that second round, or second row, it's going to be much looser. But as you knit, you're going to have to kind of move the stitches, just slide them to give yourself that extra slack that you need to knit. And what's happening is, as I am knitting, get that stitch marker out of my way, the stitch marker, you can see, is going to go down and around the cable and back up to this other needle up here. And when it's sitting on the top over here, you know you're at the end of the row. So you'll transfer that stitch marker from the left to the right and start your row 2. So that's how you know. So if your pattern calls for or suggests, or you just decide to throw in some other stitch markers just to mark repeats, you want to make sure that this one at the end of your row is unique from the rest of them. So that way you don't get confused as to where the end of your row is. And if you're finished with the row and you are about to put your needles down, you're going to walk away, I like to knit at least one stitch just to hold that stitch marker on. And then I like to pull my yarn down the needles just a little bit, and then I will usually just stick it right into my ball of yarn or cake or whatever it is you're using, and put it in my project bag and walk away. That way my knitting is secure, it's not going to fall off the needle. So that's what I prefer to do. And that is how it's done.